All right, with that, we'll open up our meeting. Do I have a motion to go into executive session? All right, I got a motion and second to go into executive session. There was multiple, so if you need the names, you just. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we are in executive session. I was going to take the bills pretty much in order.
If we could, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
just hold off on 144. We have one little addition to the amendment, and hopefully OLS will have it shortly.
Okay, just for the other members, we've had a request to add on the language to allow emailing of UOCAVA ballots. And that we're trying to add to this. And Senator Susie has been working on that in addition to her amendment. So just to bring you up to speed, hopefully. Next bill is 1174. There's somebody by the name of Gray wrote an amendment. And you should have gotten that sometime this morning. I had a problem with the wording about standing within 6 feet. And then went back and looked at the statute. This statute actually has to do with the challengers from the Attorney General's office. No indication that the author meant anything different. So I took a lot of the words that were in 666:5 and brought them down into 5A, talked about the challengers' role in watching the vote as opposed to the challengers' role in challenging voters. Give you all a minute or two to read it. From the sounds of things, I think we're going to get an ought to pass motion on the bill.
I'll move ought to pass.
Okay. And now do we have a motion on the amendment?
Pass on the amendment.
Okay,
Second.
so we have an ought to pass on amendment 2022-1743F. Did I messed it up? 34S. Okay. 1734S. Further discussion? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have the motion of ought to pass as amended now. And anyone have a discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move consent.
And we have a motion for consent.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'll take, you want to take it
I'll
out?
take that.
Okay. And one down. All right, the next one on my list, 1194. Local tax caps. Yeah, on this one, my notes say amend, but I was negligent in writing down who I thought was going to do anything. So
Well, I have a note that says Senator Gray's not ready.
Yeah, I think
So since we don't have an amendment before us, then we're going to take up the bill. It was, I guess, introduced because I don't know that the House did anything.
So I'll move ITL.
and I'll second.
So we have a motion to ITL the bill. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We have a motion for consent.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of consent? Aye.
Aye.
And do I have any volunteers on this one?
I'll take it.
Okay,
Who's taking it?
Senator Susie.
You know, I have to have the name, otherwise Marie would not be happy with me. And I know she's listening.
I understand that completely. Having been there. Okay. Next one I have is 1307.
1307.
1307?
Yep.
What is it, 15?
Housing Appeals Board.
Is that what? Do you have a different opinion?
Okay, Chair, I would move ITL on 1307.
Okay, we have a motion ITL. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second for ITL. Discussion.
Did you see this, the amendment from Guida?
Amendment from Guida.
1599S? It requires annual reports.
I mean, I don't object to the amendment if it's a fallback position, but it,
It's not a replace all.
yes.
It is.
it is a
Place all
replace
after the enacting clause, yeah. Yep.
I think while you guys are considering, I moved ITL because I think the Housing Appeals Board is new. It does have a scope that was developed in a very thoughtful way. There are decisions outside of just our land use boards that affect housing development. It's a very complex arena that I'm happy to talk at length about. But, where this is just getting underway and where it is intended to be something that's helpful to both municipalities and developers as they move through this process, I think giving it time to work is important. And, I think as amended, this bill would remove some important scope from the Housing Appeals Board, in my opinion. So I hope you'll join me in supporting my ITL motion.
And I'm not going to be able to, but mostly because I've had pushback from my planning boards that want some control. So I will be voting against the ITL.
Okay, just to give you a little bit of my memory from the history of this, the Housing Appeal Board, in my opinion, has its major impact on communities that don't have a professional planning staff. That both the zoning board, planning board, or their combined boards, however they're organized, don't have the guidance of an attorney that tells them, well, you need to have a finding of fact when you turn this down, a reason that you have to turn it down, because that leads to litigation, which then is very expensive both for the person who's asking for the request and the community when the judge comes back and says, no, because you didn't give us reasons why you turned it down that are in accordance with the statute, therefore take it back and do it again. They don't normally say, no, you're no good. They say, yeah, we think that procedurally something was missing. At least that's my experience. And that for those communities, it does provide a way for a person who is going before them to at least reduce those costs and reduce the time required to do those things. And for those reasons, and anyone who wants to disagree with my thinking, please do. Those are the reasons why I would support that they should remain as they are. Further discussion?
Well, I think just one other thing to add to that is that the board is not there to tell communities what to do. The board is simply there to ensure, it's actually, I think, deferential to the communities, but to ensure that they're following their own rules. Not that they're trying to impose anything upon them that isn't already part of their work, but merely saying, if you're going to deny something, or that you do so according to the rules that you've established for yourself. So for that reason, I don't think this bill is necessary.
Okay.
I am going to flip on that one, so I will be supporting it.
Great.
Are you?
On this housing appeals board? Well, I did not like it at all to begin with, but then Ben Frost explained, and I've heard it again, that the housing appeals board will only look at the things in terms of the rules and regulations that you have in your planning board rules. So if you are, which happens, particularly in small places where they don't have a lawyer there all the time, that they're really comparing it to the rules and the procedures that the planning board has in place.
Further discussion?
Anybody look at the amendment? The motions idea.
Yeah, with the motion of ITL, the amendment would not be.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion ITL, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do I have a motion for consent?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of consent, say aye. Aye. And is there a volunteer to take it out?
I'll take it out, Chair.
Okay, Senator Perkins Coker gets to take it out. Guida?
Don't go away.
Next on the list is 1397. I'll take care of it. All right, I'll give you a chance after you get back. Okay.
1397.
All right, so first of all, let's have a discussion on the underlying bill. Okay? We have two Rockingham representatives here, and I'd like to hear your opinions of the underlying bill before we talk about the amendment.
Sure. I was able to reach out to a few folks in Rockingham County, and the general feedback from my perspective was that no change was really needed. I do think it makes sense to visit on this for all counties together. I think there is an argument to change it to a 4-year term where the duties are really running an office day to day. And so I can see that side of it, but there doesn't seem to be a problem with how it's working. And so from my perspective, I don't see the need to act on the underlying bill, but
Yeah, I do, because I think this would actually give us a chance to see how it would work with the other. By doing it in Rockingham County, we could see how well it would work in the other counties, and it would give some consistency throughout the sheriff's department, the register of deeds, and the county attorney. So I will be supporting it for.
Okay, further discussion on the underlying bill?
Yes, so I'm okay with the underlying bill. I actually do think we should look at, particularly for some of the offices like county attorney and register of deeds, that we should look at increasing the terms across the board, because I actually think it would create more stability within those departments and be helpful. But I do want to go back to another issue, which is germane to this. When we considered House Bill 1046, that was the election of the Sullivan County Commissioners. During our deliberations on that and the report that we put in the consent calendar, which did have my name on it, said that we would be considering this issue again when we took up 1397. So I would be remiss if I didn't raise the issue again about the Sullivan County Commissioners and how they are elected.
All right. And what would you like to say about it?
Well, I mean, I supported the underlying bill, 1046, and, went with the interim study with the intention that we would revisit it and possibly amend this bill to include that language. I don't know if folks are still open to that, but I, as I said, feel an obligation to once again raise the issue.
Is there any concern that this will put this on the non-presidential elections so that you will get fewer voters voting on this position every 4 years when it comes up?
Right now they're every 2 years, just like us. So they will be in the same, they'll skip a year, but they'll be in the same schedule.
Well, if you move to the 4-year term starting in 22, then in 22 you will elect the county attorney. In 24 you'll do a president, and you won't do a county attorney again until 26. And then in 28 you'll do the president. So you will never be electing the county attorney on the same year as the president. It'll always be on that off year. We're looking at the underlying bill right now. We'll get to the amendments in a minute.
See, I think that actually makes more sense to look at these offices on the off year, because I think there'll be more scrutiny on the offices.
I agree.
Than there would be in a presidential year. Because I think in a presidential year, when you have a higher turnout, you always have drop off, but I think it's more significant for those county offices because fewer people are aware. So in the off year, there might be more attention and we'll have less of that
I agree.
fluctuation. But
Again, I'm not forward or against it. I just trying to point it out that
raise all of the issues.
the difference between a 40% turnout in an election in an off year and a 65 or 70% turnout in a presidential year could be significant. That's all. Okay, let's move on to amendments. Senator Guida, if you want to sit at the chair, I might be helpful. And somebody will have to turn their mic off so that Senator Guida can turn his on. Okay. Just so that you know, one of the proposals is to not exactly do what Senator Guida has in his amendments right now, but to do two things. Add 2 ex officio non-voting members to the commission, which would be the Commissioner of the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs, so that there could be coordination between what is happening at Gunstock and the other recreational type activities that are managed by that department. And then also the county administrator. And the reason for that is because these commissioners may not be familiar with RSA 91A and other requirements. So that is one. The second proposal that we would incorporate would be that there would be a committee made up of the Commissioner of the Department of Business and Economic Affairs, the chair of the delegation, and the chair of the county commissioners would vet the applicants and make sure that they meet the criteria that is in the statute right now, and also specify 1 member shall be an experienced skier, at least 1 member shall have professional experience in corporate finance, banking, or accounting, and at least 1 member would have demonstrated knowledge and experience in ski resort industry. 1 would be have their own business here in New Hampshire. Now, I know that Senator Birdsell has to go, so that's what the current proposal is. I have talked to Dr. Strang, and I have talked to Senator Guida about those. I'm not going to say we have a tentative agreement, but we've got a tentative agreement. We'll put 1 extra tentative in there. Again, this is hot off the press. We were just on a 3-way phone call in my office right before this meeting. So if the committee wants to talk about that, that's fine. I know Senator Birdsell has to go, so feel free, and the others will come to the floor anyway, and we'll go from there. But I don't think we've got time to do either 141 or this one before, and those are the only 2 that are left. So with that, there certainly was not time to do an amendment for this meeting. I would propose that we do a committee amendment which adds the 2 positions as ex officio non-voting members to the commission, so that something is talked about out of this committee. And then I will write a floor amendment that talks about the having the vetting process made up of hopefully those individuals, but you guys will help me do that if you're going to agree with it.
So when you said, if I may ask, Mr. Chairman, you said 2 proposals. I thought they were exclusive. You're saying both. So you would change both the vetting process and add ex officio members?
Right. And what we're actually doing in the I believe that anybody that goes on this should have a background check. I'll tell you that right out. I think any board that goes and adds members, in a very sensitive industry that doesn't do a background check or have intimate knowledge of that individual is doing a disservice to their group. So I'd want to see that. And part of the rest of these are already in the requirements that are out there in the 1959. They're just a little massaged, and a couple of, and you may be better than I to speak to those, Senator Guida.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly, the part about having the appointing committee because the process presently allows the delegation both to pick the candidates and to vote on them. And that has produced a very serious problem. You get around that process-wise with an independent committee that has 3 people, one of whom is the chair of the delegation, one who's the chair of the county commissioners, and the third who's the commissioner of BEA. They would then collaborate on producing the candidates, doing the background check and so forth, and present those to the delegation for votes. And that sort of cleans the process up so that one body isn't getting to decide who runs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
but I thought we were just saying we wanted to appoint the commissioner of BEA and the county commissioner to the commission. So then wouldn't the commission then be nominating people for the commission?
Well,
Now, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
I want to talk to that one because I'm the one who made the suggestion. Because they are non-voting ex officio, okay?
Yes.
Then there is no conflict. But I wanted someone outside of the county on that, that had a more global view of the state's interest in providing recreational activities to the citizens. And that's why I chose at least one commissioner to be on there. And then because the county, I mean, you could say that taking the chair of the county delegation, since that chair will also be voting, could cross that line. But, you know, I need some consistency.
No, I think that's fine.
And, you know, if you're only one of 18 votes, you know, I think I'm kind of insulated.
2 questions. One is, should we do the commissioner of BEA or should we do the commissioner of natural and cultural resources? Since this is a recreational activity, that's one question. And the second one is, I understand the vetting process being delegated to these 3 people. What guarantee do you have that the delegation is going to not repeatedly reject some of these nominees?
The law would establish that they get to vote on who's nominated by that commission. I mean, by the committee, I'm sorry, by the appointing committee. They don't get to go outside that, so they have to choose from among those members that are submitted to them for consideration.
But what if they choose none of the above? Is there a mechanism for them to choose none of the?
So then the existing commissioners would remain in place until,
Okay,
similar, I think, to other, but I think Senator Gray can probably better address that.
Certainly, Senator Susie, I'd be happy to work with you in coming, you know, forward with the floor amendment. But I would certainly word it that if they chose not to take one of the recommended candidates, that it go back to the committee to recommend additional candidates, if that meets with, you know, what you would like.
I'm just concerned, given the present makeup and the issue as it was presented to us, you could have an endless cycle of candidates that are potentially rejected over and over in favor of keeping someone on the commission. So that's all. I was just trying
Can
to
we state
avoid
in
that
the law, in the
scenario.
projected amendment, that the delegation shall elect from the members appointed or members, the candidates submitted?
Well, I'm not quite ready to go that far, but I think that if Senator Susie would like to work with me on that floor amendment portion, that we can probably come to language that we can at least live with. So, with all of that said, we'd move the underlying bill, and I'll move ought to pass on the underlying bill,
I'll second.
okay? And then I will move a committee amendment, and we got to find out where in the statute that it would go, but that would add the one of the commissioners, and I guess before we make the amendment, we have to pick one. The one that Senator Gaida has been working with and volunteered to do some of the things that are on here. Certainly this hasn't been vetted with the commissioner in the current configuration. It was one of the previous ones, was the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs. What I would tend to do is to make that one into the motion, and that if there's a need to change it or desire to change it, to do that also in the floor amendment.
So just so I understand, you're suggesting that we, at the very least for committee amendment today,
Yep.
add 2 ex officio members.
Ex
'Cause that's-
officio, non-voting.
Yep. So the commissioner of BEA and the county administrator, and then we would craft a floor amendment to deal with the vetting. I'm okay with that. Senator
Okay.
Gaida is.
Presuming support from the committee on the floor amendment.
Again, we always get to say no if we can't vote the floor amendment, so. Because that vote comes last.
I think just for clarity's sake for Tricia, I think that's probably the easiest, is to do the ex officio members. We know where that goes into the statute, and then we can
Right.
craft a floor.
And the reason I did want to do that section is, so that gives me the better starting point for the floor amendment.
Agree.
Okay, so the floor amendment is to add 2 ex officio non-voting members to the commission. The commissioner of the Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs or designee, and the county administrator. And I shy to put or designee on that one because I want that person.
Yeah.
Well, that hasn't changed, because the committee amendment would be to add this to the 1959,
Chapter law.
399.
and there is a section in there that talks about the makeup of the committee or commission, and this would be OLS putting those 2 ex officio members in the proper part of the statute for that.
Probably 399.4.
399.4 is what one of our attorneys has told us. Okay? So the committee amendment, we vote on that first unless there is other discussion, and that's to add those 2. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? And that's a 4-0. And then the next motion is ought to pass as amended. This additional discussion?
So just for clarity, if the committee memo was built off of 1603S, that was a replace all, right?
I'm not looking at this being a replace all.
Okay.
Because of the comments here this morning. It sounded like there was probably more support in keeping the underlying bill than
Okay.
doing away with it. Certainly it would be, in my opinion, would be a divisible item on the floor if somebody wanted to divide it. And we can certainly, in the drafting of it, try to make sure that that is, can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess having heard, the committee discussion on the underlying bill, I'm open to voting for the purposes of today for the underlying bill, especially as a chance to see how it would work for, like you said, Senator Susie offices like the county attorney. But I appreciate the effort to make it divisible.
Okay. Seeing no other discussion, the motion is ought to pass as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And I'm going to take this one out. Senator Gaida, you've got your amendment, and Senator Susie and I will be working on a floor amendment. And now, Senator Susie, it's all yours.
Back to 144, it appears that we still don't have the amendment. So what we do have, though, do we have copies of Amendment 1733? 93. Did I read that wrong?
I do not.
We could just hold for 2 minutes. Thought we had asked for those.
We'll stand in recess for 10 minutes.
The second time today I've heard that. Since our mics aren't on.
Unless you were ready, have you got your amendment now?
Well, I have the initial one in
Shut your mic off until you answer.
front, yes. Well, no, not exactly. But I don't know that we're going to get it immediately.
Okay, we're back in. We're still in executive session. And
Okay.
Senator Susie has the floor.
So on House Bill 144, we were updating that legislation. So the amendment before you, Amendment 1733, is a replace all amendment. It includes the language in 144. It also adds, as the chairman noted, language that this committee had unanimously supported in Senate Bill 426, adding illness or other medical condition after disability. And then if you turn to page 6 of the amendment, on line 19, where it says, please provide one, it should say one or both of the following in case we need to contact you. At the bottom of page 7, we would insert the section that you and I talked about this morning, Senator Gray, which is RSA 657:10A regarding emailing of the UCAVA ballots. And also on page 7, in this section, we need to update the envelope language so that it mirrors the language you had in Senate Bill 365,
And that's
which this
print, name, and
committee has
address.
already passed. Thank you. And that language, if anyone, it's about returning the language in person. So it would be the exact language of Senate Bill 365.
Okay, so that's still not your amendment?
That has to be added as, those are the two things that we're adding to what is the amendment before you.
Okay,
And it was requested a few hours ago.
I don't know that I have an amendment that goes that far. I've got a Griffin Amendment whose name is on yours.
So this is just, this is the bill. This is your
Okay.
original bill.
All right, as amended by the House, I've got that. But it only goes to 4 pages and you were talking about 7.
No, the amendment we just handed out.
So 1733 is what John is going over right now.
I thought that was a different piece of paper that I had put up there.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's my fault. Okay,
A, and that was to allow for emailing the UOCAVA ballots. Those are the military ballots, emailing those so that they can get to the recipients that much quicker.
So where would we insert that?
If we're doing it in order, we would insert it at the bottom of page 7.
Okay.
Email.
So the language that was in Senator Gray's Senate Bill 365, which allows for absentee ballots to be handed in without the exterior envelope. So it's language that this committee has already supported.
It's really, it's demonstrated there on 7, line 28. I believe is all that we really had in there was the voter address. And that allowed the clerk or other election official to be able to, instead of having to rely on the signature, which may not be all that legible, decipherable probably would be a nice word. That gives them the address so they can look it up that way.
What we also had in that bill, we also had in Roman 3, which is not part of this amendment, that absentee ballots returned to a town or city clerk in person shall not be required to be placed in such outer envelopes. That has to be incorporated.
Huh? And did we get an ETA from OLS when they thought they would be done with the bill?
Just
Yeah, then just do it for.
If the committee is comfortable and the clerk can record down the changes, we can certainly vote on it as a committee amendment and pass it and go from there.
Yeah, just make sure the changes.
Senator Susie, I just had one question. This says, sorry, I'm just trying to pick the right place to reference it, but it says disability, illness, or other medical condition, and I had a note that we had said unable to vote in person due to a physical, mental, or developmental disability, but I don't know if my note's correct. I just wanted to bring that up in case.
this was the language that we had adopted as a committee to 426.
Got it.
So
Okay.
that's,
No,
there's nothing proposed in this amendment that this committee, other than emailing the UCAVA ballots, there's nothing that this committee hasn't already voted on.
Okay.
now, because the House did not pass the language that we sent them, it would be possible to go into that illness or disability, illness or other mental condition that prevented them from appearing at the polling place or something more with more of an explanation, which may be better for passage in the House. Comments on that?
I mean, I'm open to that change if,
That it would be, and I'm looking at page 7, line 4. And let me look at the sentence to make sure that, you know, us engineers, we don't do that grammar stuff that well. Absence, religious obligation, and disability, illness or other medical condition. How can I fit that in there?
Physical or mental medical condition?
Try that again.
We're trying to put in the mental disability language.
We're trying to put in words that say that if you have one of these conditions, it has to be something that prevents you from appearing at the polls on election day. So if I say illness, okay, I have high blood pressure, okay? High blood pressure doesn't prevent me from being at the polls, okay? But I do have an illness. And yes, I do.
So you're trying to narrow it a bit
Right.
to make it amenable to a wider group.
See, if you're going into, line 1 on 7, in the title there, you certainly could put at the end of that sentence, that prevents the voter from appearing at the polls on election day. And certainly that would get me there, but now, do I need to add it to the individual sections? And I'll ask for guidance of the committee.
Well, if you're looking, yeah, I would say, well, that's if you're going to add it to Roman numeral 1, then I would most certainly, number 2.
Not Roman numeral 1, but line 1. At
Oh,
the
the
end of
title.
line, at the end of line 1.
Oh, the title.
Right. Because I was trying to get it grammatically in there that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for guidance from you ladies that are much more grammarian than I am.
So on line number 2 on line 20, it specifically states, I am unable to vote in person due to a disability illness. So why don't we incorporate that language up in the title as best we can, so they kind of mirror each other.
The only reason I don't think that's a great plan is if there is language that was agreed in a previous session that we can just go to because it was accepted, but doesn't sound like there's magic words out there. I just didn't know if during the changes we needed to make to the ballots in 2020, if there was like sort of a magical clause that you guys had used, but it sounds
Well, because of the action of the House, I think we're actually, we can put in anything we want because they didn't
yeah.
accept the changes that we made.
No, I get that piece. Okay. So absence, religious observance, and disability. So,
So if it is just in that section, so if it is
Yeah.
just on line 1, so absence, religious observance, disability, illness, or other medical condition that prevents the voter from appearing at the polls.
It should be incorporated.
Yeah.
It should I don't want to say, if it's in the title, I would presume that if someone's reading it, they would understand that it means that throughout.
Yeah,
the
because then
section.
it is in line 20.
Yep.
So they're unable to vote in person due to that, so it prevents them from appearing at the
Right.
polls.
Sounds like we're close to consensus. We've got 2 heads shaking on this side and 2 heads shaking on this side. Okay,
we're not anyway.
So to get things started, I'd move ought to pass on House Bill 144.
Second.
okay. So we have an ought to pass, and we have a motion for a committee amendment.
And I would move ought to pass on Amendment 1733 with the following changes on page 6, line 19, where it says provide one, we would add or both. On page 7, line 1, at the end of or other medical condition, add that prevents the voter from appearing at the polls. At the bottom of page 7, I would add the language in Roman numeral 3 of the statute, that's in Senate Bill 365, that says absentee ballots returned to town or city clerk in person shall not be required to be placed in such outer envelope. And then add the language in RSA 657-10-A to enable emailing UCAVA ballots. And
I'll second.
This is just question, on page 4, line 28. Says, I'm unable to register in person due to a disability. Do we need the language illness or other medical condition inserted here? Because it is in the next section.
good
Well-
catch.
Okay. I'm sorry, page 4, line 28. The line reads, I'm unable to register in person due to a disability. And so it says comma. I think we need to insert illness or other medical condition, comma.
And that would be another place to put in, at the end of that,
That prevents me from, yeah.
although I guess the beginning of the sentence talks to that some,
I'm unable to register to vote in person because I am absent.
due to the illness, so.
Yep.
Yeah, it can probably stay out of there, I guess. Just the illness, et
Or other
cetera,
medical condition.
or other medical condition. Hey, does anyone have any questions about what the committee amendment says? Any further discussion? All those in favor of the committee amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, OTPA. All those, any discussion?
Do we want to put this on consent?
Well, we're gonna motion ought to pass as amended first, so.
Sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? All right, now the discussion on consent.
I move consent.
Second.
We have a motion for consent. All those in favor of consent, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Donna Susie, Senator Susie, you
Okay.
worked so hard on that one.
This out.
You get to continue. Okay,
Wow.
We did it.
5 up, 5 down. One floor amendment to right. Any further discussion before we exit executive session?
Move we come out of executive
We
session?
have a motion to come out of executive session. We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And our business being completed, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.